In Taiwan, there is a naturally occurring breed of dog, aka a landrace breed, that is highly sought after in the western United States and Canada. This landrace breed also has a very interesting history, including a recovery from human-induced near extinction. We're going to talk all about the Formosan mountain dogs in today's episode with our special guest, Jenna. Spend the next 20 minutes feeding your brain with Formosa Fauna so you can learn all about the animal kingdom and become smarter than all of your friends. We are here again with Jenna Dodson, who has fostered over 70 dogs over her career of being a foster in both the United States and Taiwan. Specifically, when you got to Taiwan, how did you find out about Formosa mountain dogs?
So I moved here and I knew that I wanted to continue fostering. That wasn't even in question. And so I got on Facebook and started looking for anyone looking for a foster. And I found one rescue relatively quickly and reached out, and they reached back out, and they're like, we primarily rescue Formosan mountain dogs. I'm like, oh, that's great. What's that? And that was my introduction. They gave me my very first Formosan mountain dog. That was Pluto. He was a goofball, and just went from there. And I fell in love with the breed very quickly. And I really shouldn't call them a breed because they are a land race. But I fell in love with the Formosan mountain dogs very quickly. They are incredible, incredible dogs.
Could you explain the difference between a breed and a land race?
Yeah. So a breed is something that humans created, through selectively choosing which dogs to continue the line. And they created for human purposes. A land race is something that it might have had human influence. Oftentimes there is some human influence, but it is primarily created by the land due to some form of isolation. Formosan mountain dogs are dogs. They are descendants of the pariah dog from, actual Asian continent. They somehow made their way over to Taiwan before even people did. So they are the original Taiwanese sort of deal. They weren't wolves, they were dogs when they arrived, and nature selected which ones got to breed. The ones that survived the heat the best got to breed. The ones that didn't die of mosquito-borne illness got to breed. The ones that were the best hunters, the best mountain climbers, these were the ones that got to pass on their lineage. And as a result, they are dogs that have grown with the land. And then eventually the native Taiwanese, made their way to the island and caught these dogs, and they started, selecting for ones that were the best guardians or the best, flock herders or the best whatever. But these dogs are semi-feral. They are semi-wild, and they were not bred to be, these beautiful golden retrievers or these incredibly intelligent border collies. They are a landrace breed. They were developed by the land.
We talk about landrace breeds. For international listeners who aren't familiar, especially with the Formosa mountain dogs, is there any well-known landrace breed that people would
Yes, the dingo.
The dingo.
Dingoes are dogs that have become feral and wild in Australia, and they are a landrace breed.
Does the Formosa mountain dog make a good pet?
They can, but would I want to take one off of a mountain and try and turn it into a good pet? No, I would definitely want to take one from a city street and try to make it into a good pet. Because a dog that's been on the streets is going to be comfortable with humans. One of the fosters I've had here, Dee Dee, not little brother, just name. She was found with her puppies just on a mountain. And she was an awesome dog. I adored having her as a foster. And she is now living her very best life in Seattle.
In Seattle?
Yes.
Okay, we'll get to that.
The very first dogs set foot on Taiwan before the very first people set foot on Taiwan. I'm going to butcher a lot of names in this segment, likely. The Atayal people, the native Taiwanese, they came after the Formosan mountain dog. The Formosan mountain dog arrived before any people did.
And how many years ago was that?
We have proof of these dogs going back 5,000-6,000 years. Their genetic line can be traced 10 to 15,000 years. These are very old dogs. They are very special.
Do you know how long their life expectancy is?
A lot of breeds, because they were inbred to get like the beautiful golden coat or the very flat face, a lot of human design breeds will have health issues. But these dogs, because they are landrace breeds, tend to be pretty healthy. You can generally expect 10 to 15 years.
Okay. And you did mention that one of your previous fosters, Dee Dee, is now living her best life in California?
In Seattle.
Oh, Seattle.
Pluto, who I also mentioned, he's in California.
What? How did they get all the way over in the United States?
There are plenty of people in the U.S. who have fallen in love with this breed as well as I have. And there are so many of these dogs in Taiwan. We can't possibly adopt them out solely in Taiwan. And so there are rescues here who, while they will adopt out to Taiwanese residents and citizens, a lot of their dogs get shipped to the U.S., primarily the West Coast and the West Coast of Canada. I don't want to leave Canada out. Just to name drop a few, there's Tiramisu Dog Rescue, there's Eve's Dogs, there's Mary's Dogs. I'm sure I'm forgetting a bunch, but these rescues, they take these dogs off the streets, they get them all prepared, they get them vaccinated, spayed, neutered, all the good things, and then they find wonderful, devoted adopters across the ocean, and they get these dogs flown over there.
How do these dogs fly over there?
That is actually another great way for people who want to get involved, is you need flight volunteers. You need people who are already flying to these places on the right flights. Not every plane can take a dog, but on the right flights, they need to essentially show up to the airport a couple hours earlier than they normally would. And then all the paperwork gets filled out, typically by the rescues. And then they take that dog as part of their luggage. And they meet the adopters on the other side and hand the dog over. If you know you're going to the West Coast of the US or Canada, you can post on like Facebook groups. Like I am flying in November, January or whatever, and I'm going to this place. If you're looking for a dog flight volunteer, contact me, and then the rescue might reach out to you, and they'll know what kind of planes can take the dogs. And if they have the dog that needs a flight, you're good to go.
Oh, that is amazing. I really want to do that.
I want to do it so bad too, but like my home is in the middle of America, so I can't do it.
Well, same, but I always transfer at San Francisco.
Yeah, but remember, you have to go and meet the adopters.
Yeah,
so,
I could take a couple days.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So if I stayed in San Francisco and visited my brother who lives there, I could be a flight volunteer.
Does it cost anything extra for the flight volunteers?
It's totally taken care of by the rescue. The rescue will raise the extra money. So it is the only thing the flight volunteer has to be okay with is showing up a few hours earlier than normal.
Oh my goodness. And then for a few hours of your time, you can be responsible for delivering this dog to their forever home in the United States. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's a really cool thing. And because I sent some of my own fosters, I got to meet some of these flight volunteers. The people I've met have been so wonderful and happy, and they're just like, oh, this is so cool. And they get to play with the dog before the dog goes on the plane and take photos. And it's just a really wonderful, fun experience all around. Most groups have to put out desperate pleas looking for flight volunteers. Sometimes they just don't have dogs that need to go during that time. And again, you might be on a plane that can't take a dog.
Okay.
It's much more complicated. The only way we managed to get Dee Dee to Seattle was she was getting adopted at the same time the election was going on. Normally, the planes that fly to Seattle cannot take dogs. They're not big enough. But because the election was going on, a lot of people were coming back and forth trying to get to Taiwan in order to vote. And so the planes were bigger. And so we were able to get Dee Dee on a bigger plane because of the election.
An unexpected benefit of no mail-in voting.
Exactly.
That's so funny. Now, okay, you said there are plenty of dogs in Taiwan, plenty of the Formosan mountain dogs in Taiwan. And that's why, they're being exported to the US and Canada. But you also mentioned that in Taiwan there are only about 3,000 left.
Yeah, so there's plenty of Formosan mountain dog mixes. Too many Formosan mountain dog mixes. But true, pure, unmixed Formosan mountain dogs are incredibly, incredibly rare. Just, these dogs lived in isolation for 5,000 years, and then colonizers came. And so, with the Dutch and the Portuguese, these dogs started to be intermixed with the dogs they brought. And then Kuomintang,
And the Chinese Nationalist Party?
yes, they came and they wanted to, it's rather well documented, they wanted to destroy a lot of Taiwanese culture, the original Taiwanese culture. And a big part of that Taiwanese culture was the dogs. So these dogs were hunted, they were destroyed, they were delicious. These dogs were brought to the brink of extinction by the 1970s. And then a Dr. Sang Young-yi, and again, I'm going to butcher names, he and a group of Taiwanese and Japanese scientists decided to see if they could save the breed.
How did they start with an effort to save the breed?
They went into the most rural, mountainous, forested areas in Taiwan, and they went to the native groups that were least contacted, and they started genetic testing every single one of the dogs they found. And eventually, after, I think, 3 years of searching, they were able to find 42 truly pure dogs left. And thankfully, it was a pretty even split between male and female.
Oh.
That was very lucky. And they started breeding these dogs. And after a while, Dr. Sang Young-yi's son took over and really got into breeding and became like this like mythic figure in the breeding of these dogs. And through his incredibly dedicated work and the incredibly dedicated work of some other breeders, they've brought this breed back from 42 dogs to over 3,000.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Anytime you see something amazing like that happen, know that there's an incredibly dedicated person behind it.
And probably team too.
Yes,
with
the whole
that
team.
Thousands of dogs. If people are interested in adopting Formosan mountain dogs, it is relatively easy to find mixed.
Oh, super
Formosan
easy to
mountain
find mixed. You can go to just about any like park and pick up a stray.
Oh no.
Or
Okay.
like my foster Pancake, if you want one that looks just like him, Taiwan actually has this Taiwan animal management system that you can go and like every dog in a shelter is listed on that website from Taipei down to Kaohsiung. If it's in a shelter, it is listed, and there are tens of thousands of these Formosan mixes in that shelter system.
What if somebody wants a purebred Formosan mountain dog?
They will either have to get insanely lucky when picking up a dog out of a shelter, or they can go to a breeder.
You did mention it earlier when we were speaking, but I don't think you mentioned it here, and I want to trace back to that. You said the reason why some people on the west coast of the US and Canada would be interested in this dog is because...
Some people love having a dog breed you've never heard of before.
just to be special.
Just to be special. I don't think it's worth laughing at. Like, everyone wants to have something special about them. I wanted to dye my hair blue a little while ago. And also, it's such a great way to start a conversation. It's just like someone comes up to you and goes, "Oh, I've never seen a dog that looks like that. What is it?" And that starts the conversation. And you can be like, "Oh, this is my Formosan mountain dog. I got it in Taiwan." And then they can go, "Oh, Taiwan. I've always wanted to visit Taiwan." And it just starts a conversation. And I think everyone wants to have something that's a little special about them. And I think if you're rescuing a dog that otherwise would have starved to death or would have like been stuck in a shelter its entire life, if that's what you want your special thing to be, fantastic. It's way better than my blue hair.
Way more meaningful, yes. Do you feel like Formosan mountain dogs are visibly a breed?
You know them when you see them, but they do look very similar to some other landrace breeds because what tends to work in one place tends to work in other places. That's why you might see a deer in Asia and a deer in America. It's because that model works.
Okay. And to me, I used to think they were just mixed mutts, basically, right? What do people look out for if they're looking out for a Formosan mountain dog?
So it shouldn't be more than 40 pounds, between around 20 and 40 pounds. Almond-shaped eyes. The almond-shaped eyes are the big one because most mixes have like the round eyes. The almond-shaped eyes is what you're going to look for. Very sturdy, broad-chested, well-proportioned, pointy ears. Their face is like their whole head is like just a nice little mix of triangles. Their face is pointy, their ears are pointy, incredibly smart. I'm talking, you're going to question whether your 10-year-old or your dog is smarter. Incredibly smart. My foster dogs have been able to understand full sentences that I speak to them. Like,
Wow.
forget just one word commands. I can just, like, I can speak full sentences and they seem to understand.
Wow.
Fiercely loyal, typically to one person, but can be to more.
Okay.
I joke that my foster dog's Pancake's main goal is to go out in a blaze of glory, protecting me from a bear.
That's really cute and specific. So currently in Taiwan, how many stray dogs are there?
The lowest estimate is around 150,000, but most people agree it's around 180,000.
Okay, and Taiwan, within the past few years, has recently enacted a non-euthanasia policy.
Yeah.
How does that work?
It could work if other things were in place. I'm a big dog rescue person. I don't want to see any dog die. But certain things need to be in place, like a good portion of the population needs to be spayed and neutered. Generally, it's accepted that at least 70% of the population of pets needs to be spayed and neutered. When this was enacted in 2017, the percentage of spayed and neutered pets was 30%. That is not even half of where it needed to be. Thankfully, due to a lot of government incentivizing, we are now at 68.9% for dogs. We're so close to the 70%. So if you have a friend or know anyone who has an unspayed or neutered dog, get on them. Tell them they need to spay and neuter it. But the thing is, their pet population wasn't spayed or neutered enough. There were already so many, and there aren't enough shelters. The shelters aren't big enough. They're not staffed well enough. And so, everyone in rescue here is just drowning. And that's the way it is in most countries, But the thing is, we can't get better if we don't talk about it, if we don't try and find solutions. And I live in New Taipei City, and I want to give them a big shout out because their government has really done a lot to incentivize people to adopt and to take proper care of their animals. Like last year, I saw they offered a monetary incentive if you adopted a dog over 10 years old, and they offered some discounted or free pet insurance for like a year if you adopt from a New Taipei shelter, and they incentivize getting spayed and neutered and vaccinated and microchipped. Like, the government is doing what they can, but the people need to do what they can as well.
There are so many people who dedicate their whole livelihoods to trying to help with stray cats and dogs. What can the average person do without breaking the bank?
The average person can volunteer or donate money. Like, even just a little bit of money is going to go a long way because shelters and rescues can get, better prices than your average person can. But also, like, if you live near a shelter and you speak Chinese, because I tried to volunteer at a shelter and they're like, if you don't speak Chinese, you can't, just because in an emergency, we need to be able to give you rapid fire instructions. Mm-hmm. But if you can speak and understand Chinese, if you want to go and just walk a dog for a little bit, show it some attention. The issue with shelters, and I don't want to diss shelters, they do incredibly necessary work. But if you are in a cage all the time and you don't interact with humans, you forget how to interact with humans. And so if you can go and remind the dog how to be a dog once a week, once a month, then you make it so that the dog is adoptable for longer. Because some dogs come in very friendly, and after a few months, they just become less and less friendly because they have less and less interaction. So if you go in and interact with the dogs, you give them a longer chance to get adopted.
So volunteering might not even look like picking up poop and going to these crazy scenarios where dogs are injured and stuff. It could honestly just be showing up at a shelter and playing with some dogs.
Yes. And also, if you have a background in photography, getting good photos of these dogs can mean the difference between adoption and no adoption. So if you are a photographer and have an hour to go take photos of shelter dogs, that is hugely powerful, especially black dogs, because black dogs don't show up well on phone cameras. Yeah, black dog, black cat syndrome, it's bad.
Yeah. And I have a black cat. He's the best cat I've ever had.
Pancake is black and he's fantastic.
Thank you so much, Jenna Dodson. Anything you want to leave our listeners with?
Just try and get involved however you can. Whether it's helping dogs or helping people, the world is a better place when we help each other.
Thank you so much. Making it to the end of an episode makes you a Formosa Fauna friend. It's not gross, it's cute. Thank you for tuning in, friend. See you next time for Formosa Fauna Fridays here on Radio Taiwan International.